we need an internet of impact, right? I mean, I think that's kind of what we need to get to, is that the ability to just be able to filter for all the aspects of impact that matter to you, and then based on all the other aspects that are factors in your decision making, to be able to take that informed decision with confidence.
Welcome back. So, of the Voice of Generation Climate, TVOGC. Today we have with us Aalok Deshmukh, who's the co-founder and MD of SuperHumanRace. It's the world's most advanced platform for measuring good across very many different stakeholders in society, primarily businesses. Aalok, what a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thanks, Ani. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Aalok is also a wonderful member of our sustainability mafia community as a mafioso. So we've actually crossed paths very many times now. And Alok, I consider you like just a great founder leading the climate charge. What inspired you to get into the climate and sustainability space? What was the inception point?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. For me, it's always been in some way, shape, or form. I've been in the climate and sustainability space right from the outset after graduating from architecture college. Back then, it was things like passive solar architecture and energy simulation of buildings and so on. And I think that in some ways, maybe it was just scripted. I had a natural inclination towards these things, and then I just found the right mentors, guides, and experiences along the way. I could not have scripted this better if I were to do this myself. As I look back, I've just had the experience of working with some of the most phenomenal and inspiring folks as I've gone along. So I think, to begin with, it was about making sure in architecture college that buildings are designed to be responsive to climate and most efficient and, least environmental impact and so on. But over the years, it's been quite the journey that has taken, many different turns, but always kind of related to climate and sustainability.
And now your stated vision is to measure impact and good, measure good.
Right.
Both are subjective terms, right? So what is your definition for impact versus good, or are they the same thing in your opinion?
So we say we are in the business of measuring good, as is done by individuals and organizations, and as is known by many different names, including impact in the field of either business sustainability or corporate social responsibility, the good that individuals do with their day-to-day actions for sustainability or volunteering and so on. And the reason we started to do this is that because we found, with the experience that each of us has had in our corporate jobs in the past, was that while there is a lot of rigor in the space of reporting for business and finance, in the space of reporting for good or impact or sustainability or social responsibility, there is a lot of, tolerance for warm, fuzzy, touchy-feely statements around the fact that my intervention is unique, or that my beneficiaries are different, or my location is different, and so on. And what we found with all the experiences that we had is that becomes an impediment to scale, because it comes in the way of accessing capital for the good that people do. So we actually say that, it's everything that you do, if you're able to measure it rigorously, then you're able to recognize it reliably. If you're able to recognize it reliably, you can make a case for it to be rewarded adequately. If it is rewarded adequately, then it can scale. And for us, measuring good is the starting point of scaling good. Essentially, all the good that we want to see around us, whether it is being done by organizations, companies in the environmental sustainability space or in the social impact space, we see this as the first step to being able to scale the good in the world.
Yeah, measure what matters.
Yep.
Right? That's the first step.
Right.
Even in our thinking, the behavior change loop almost always starts with the knowledge layer.
Right.
First empower knowledge, then it drives intent, then action, and then impact.
Yep.
Right? And I think that first knowledge layer of measurement, you guys are doing really, really phenomenally. build a great platform for it. Is it more individual focused or businesses? Because I know you say both. But do you straddle both sides being B2C and B2B, or do you have a dominant
So
focus?
our dominant part is B2B. Even on the B2C side, it's more of a B2B2C. So we have three products. We have what we call business sustainability outcomes or ESG automation. We have CSR automation or social impact. And then we also have what we call experiential citizen engagement, which businesses that are looking to engage their employee base with the whole notion of employer branding and engaging employees with a sense of meaningful purpose will use the platform to drive their team members to engage in things like day-to-day sustainability actions or volunteering for events or those kinds of things, and then the aggregate impact of those actions as businesses, as business divisions, as locations, functions, teams can be reported, leaderboards get generated, and so on. But the gamification in terms of leaderboards is something that we carry through all our platforms. So everybody everywhere gets to see how they're doing in terms of their data coverage, how they're doing in terms of their performance relative to peers. They get red bars when they're below a certain threshold of data coverage that motivates them to, we've had non-profits tell us that they want to get the bar to be green. So that's kind of, something that is definitely working. We get into situations where we have 100% data coverage for the primary data layer across sites of our client organizations. And we do it because we just enable the right information and the right visibility at all the right levels.
Can you give me an example of some companies you have worked with? And what difference did they had a starting point where they did not measure impact or good. And then you came around, you actually educated them about the value of it.
Yep.
And then now it's become a default choice for them to keep doing that.
Right.
What does that life cycle look like?
Yep. Two examples immediately come to mind. One was our first client, which was the foundation of one of India's largest public sector banks. And at the time we started working with them, they had a very peculiar problem of being able to access only 70 million rupees of the 1.5 billion, that's billion with a B, rupees of CSR funds that the group companies were spending. And part of the challenge was that the group companies were not finding a lot of confidence in the tracking and monitoring and reporting of the impact that was being delivered by the foundation with the granularity and the reliability that they wanted to see that impact. And at the end of about 3 years that we were working with them, we had managed to get them from the 70 million or 7 CR of CSR funds that they had access to, with the granular level of data coverage across, over 100 locations and more than 100 non-profit partners, getting to 100% data coverage and being able to report all the right indicators and metrics to the right stakeholders. They were able to get to 1.4 billion, again billion with a B, rupees of funding. So a 20x increase over a 10-year period, because they were able to measure the good that they were doing reliably, confidently, and effectively. So a straight access to capital success story on the social impact space. On the business sustainability space, one of our first ESG clients actually came to us with a global platform that they were using across all of their properties and sites. And they were only at around 7% data coverage at any given time, because data capture is the bane of any such effort of doing it. And 2 years later, we closed the financial year with them. In fact, 1.5 years later, we closed the financial year with them with 100% primary data coverage at the most granular node of data capture, which included aspects like the amount of construction materials consumed on each site, along with the transportation of those materials, down to how many kilograms of cement and so on. And 100% data coverage, 100% data approval backed by evidence. And they gave auditor access to one of the big four. And they were able to do the assurance on the platform for their sustainability reporting and investor relations reporting on the platform using the auditor access, and they came back saying that it is the data coverage is indeed 100%, and the confidence in the data is upwards of 95% because we were able to give them the audit trail. But the important thing also was, as we started getting this data, and this is one of the things that I say is that, high fidelity data gives you the confidence to be able to take decisions based on anomalies and variances that you see. And they were able to see across their sites, once they were able to look at the outliers, that, for example, one cluster of their sites had transportation emissions from a particular material, construction material, at 4.7x the company average. And that led them to examine the procurement contracts for that material for those sites. And they found that there was indeed a procurement efficiency opportunity, and they were able to save 30 million rupees on those construction sites. And oh, by the way, it also saved tens of thousands of CO2 emissions in kilograms, right? I mean, so you're saving money, you're unearthing procurement efficiency, value chain efficiency opportunities, you're getting bang for the buck based on data related to impact, and you're doing good by the aspect of impact that you care about.
Yes. And then that emissions hotspot recognition informed them that this is actually a cost wastage as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So that's a reverse.
Yep.
Rather than cost wastage showing emission wastage, it's emission wastage leading to cost wastage recognition.
Right. Yep.
And that is really cool.
Yep.
Because I think for a very long time, it's almost always been considered that climate or sustainability layer is extra, it's more expensive, right? Green premium.
Right.
But really, it's not just life cycle savings anymore, it's upfront. Like, you can recognize that if you're more climate inefficient,
yep,
you are actually possibly more expensive in your existing systems. There's opportunities to cut and save more money by becoming more climate efficient too.
Yep, absolutely. So it's operational efficiency opportunities, it's procurement efficiency opportunities. In some cases, we've even been able to show customer facing opportunities, right? So one of our real estate owner operator clients juxtaposed, using the data that is on the platform, the water intensity of their facilities and the energy intensity of their facilities, because they had a feeling for a couple of their facilities that the energy intensity was off the charts, and they figured water intensity is a proxy for human occupancy, whereas energy intensity could be on account of any reason as such. And when they actually drilled down, they did in fact find, for a commercial office lease, they had a tenant of theirs using the space as a server farm. So that became a lease renegotiation vector for them when the lease was up for renewal, right? So it's not just the bottom line, it's also a top line consideration that can be brought forth. Because you have the data, and like I said, because you have high fidelity in the data, you have the ability to take that data to the decision makers and make the case for a change.
Have you found that with what you do, it's been a push product and then turned into a pull, or was there almost always pull from the very beginning? What I mean by that is there's a lot of education involved over here, right? Yeah. You're breaking into different companies and you're saying, here's why this is important. You didn't do it earlier, here's why it's important. But because you're doing that education layer, there's an element of like a long cycle of education and then pushing it to a degree before they start pulling it in. Or did you feel the pull from very early on itself?
So look, early days it was, we just needed the break. And, we were, in a couple of instances, we had to buy the business to get the business, literally giving it away at like a throwaway price and just basically cover our cost. But once we got those early wins and got working with like real cases, real data, all of our business since then has just been referrals. Somebody that has used our products, that has used it to good effect, will meet their friends at conferences, and when those friends are lamenting about the fact that they're really struggling with data capture and about the digitization of reporting and how difficult it is, the refrain usually is, you have got to talk to these guys at SuperHumanRace. And once we have the conversation, show the folks that are decision makers what we've built and give them a proof of concept in terms of what the data can do for them for their specific case, it's usually a fairly easy conversation. It'll still have long lead times because these decisions happen at various levels of the organization. But so far, it's been more of a pull, but in part also because we've not, the growth that we've had incoming has kept us busy enough. But we do now think that as we look at hyperscaling any of this, we're going to have to figure out ways to push this out as well.
Great. That's really cool. I mean, when you start feeling that pull, like PMF, right? You've crossed PMF, you cross that critical threshold.
Absolutely.
Now it's the question of just how do you scale it, hyperscale it globally. I'd have to talk to you about the different stakeholders it takes to build something like a superhuman race into what it is, right? So number one is, of course, your customers, who you've hinted at. Number two is your employees and your colleagues. So can you talk about what does it take to build a great team like Superhuman Race? What are the kind of people you've found? Who are the right kind of people you think are a great fit for a team like yours? Because climate overall is very different from every other sector, and the type of DNA it takes to really survive and then thrive in this field, right?
Yep. No,
so what is your thought about how you built your team?
So, building a team when and we've been bootstrapped all along. We turned profitable last year and we, continue to grow profitably now. And so it looks like we've turned a corner, and especially during COVID, 21 months where we must have done at least a couple of 100 demos and walkthroughs, and there was nothing coming in the door because people were just, decision averse at the time. But we always had the core team that has been with us through the beginning, and I think that in some cases we're all just a bunch of nerds dedicated to driving real impact, and I think that's one part of it. The other part of it also is that I think the things we look for is that it does not matter what your educational qualification or discipline is. What matters is the ability to be able to look at anything from a first principles lens and critically and analytically, and to be able to think about different ways in which any problem might be solved, whether it is something that is a platform functionality that can be repurposed, or whether it is indeed a new functionality that might need to be developed, and so on. But always trying to get to, what is it that we need to solve? What is the aspect of impact that we want to show? How do we want to kind of, demonstrate that the impact has been delivered, and so on? So I think that we're usually looking for generalists who can ask the right questions. And also, I think the one other thing that we've realized recently, because of a conversation we had with one of our advisors, is we need people with a lot of intellectual stamina. So we often joke about the fact that working here is kind of like running a marathon at sprint speed while threading a needle. And, because that's just, what is required with some of the things that we do in terms of like attention to detail, in terms of being able to go really fast towards the deliverables and the outcomes, and, being able to do it over the long run. So, yeah.
I have a similar adage that I use to think about the marathon and sprint, which is impatience with action, patience with results.
Right.
So always bias for action now, but it's okay to also wait for things to happen and let them germinate. But always bias for action now, right? I think it's so imperative to do that and not just sit around and wait. So is there an example of someone, you can actually call out names too, on your team who's been there with you long enough, and you've actually just seen completely evolve with the organization? And because I'm trying to get an archetype of someone who outperforms in this space.
Right. So we've had, we've had folks that the founding tech team has been with us from the beginning. So our DevOps leader, our chief technology officer, our chief design officer, these are the folks that have actually manifested and made real the things that the founders have come up with, because the founders don't actually come from the tech background, in terms of information technology, but we've managed to work really well with our founding tech team, and over the years, from what were early models for tracking impact in the social space to be able to create things like what we have created now in terms of deep data models, and for things like duplicate flagging we are using algorithms that are used for DNA pattern matching and so on. These are the kinds of things we would never have thought of earlier, but as we've come across unique problems and hard problems that needed new ways of looking at it. We've just continuously kind of evolved, asking questions, looking for parallel or lateral insights, and being able to drive that. So, some of the other things that we are also doing is climate risk modeling for portfolio owners, and able to, and we've had cases where we've done like 150 odd data sets of weather data from all over the world to be able to get like pin code level temperature anomaly data, and to juxtapose that against business performance, net operating income, and so on and so forth. So I think over the years it's just been we every time we've come across hard problems that have broader import, we've looked at parallel insights, lateral insights, and kind of found seemingly unlikely algorithms or data sets to then try and kind of make it fit. So yeah, I think we've got folks from microbiology, we've got folks from like backgrounds in computational fluid dynamics, folks that have economics backgrounds. So it just really is the ability to kind of get to the crux of the problem that we're trying to solve, and then find the most elegant ways of solving it.
That's very good. Yeah, I think talent is one of the most important levers in helping build a company like SuperHumanRace or any digital service company, because now we're optimizing for smallest possible teams, but of the best operators.
Yep.
Right? So customers first, talent second. Third, I was going to come to is capital, but I know in your case, you are bootstrapped completely and you reach profitability, which is incredible. But my question from there is, in a world that's full of abundant capital, have you found more freedom and more ability to build as you want being bootstrapped? Or is there that thinking, oh, should I have taken capital? Should I do it at some point or no? Like which side do you lean? Is there a right answer to this? Because we're actually still living in that world, right? A lot of founders are moving away to bootstrap models now, especially if empowered by AI. And some other founders are still in that raise capital at all costs, growth at all costs.
Right. And, so to be honest, there have been times in our recent past where we've come across that question, should we raise? And if yes, what should that be worth and what should it be for? But the reality is that, just building and selling our way to growth has kept us consumed. So we've just not prioritized raising, and it's worked out well for us so far with what we have. But we do have some innovations that we are now spinning off, where we think that building on top of those innovations to hyperscale some of the impact with different interfaces, different use cases, is something that we will be raising for. So that will be a whole new world for us. But I think being your own boss has its own sweet kind of feeling, and maybe with the next phase of our spin-off of some of the innovations that we are kind of spinning off, we'll get a taste of what it is like to grow unfettered and blitz scale because you have capital. So we'll see how that goes.
It's never unfettered. It's never ever like with no strings attached is not a thing, right?
Right.
In fact, you hinted at it. Building on customer money is so much better than building on investor money. But both have their place. Both have value.
Right. So the thing with customer money though is that it does come. It's kind of like in the development space, right? You have what are called as like general purpose funding. There is a specific term in the development space, in the fundraising, in the social impact space, is that because even customer money comes with very specific customer deliverables, and it's always something that we've got to figure out that how do we deliver what the customer needs specifically. And this is something that I think we've excelled at, is that every time we've come across a unique problem statement from a customer use case, we've always taken a step back and thought about how do we abstract this so that it becomes useful to the ecosystem at large and to the entire network. And I think that then, allows us to do what we are doing the way we're doing it, is the abstraction and the kind of, thinking about, all right, so this is one use case, but, in its best, most abstract form, how would this be beneficial to just about everybody that's using the platform or the product? And I think that is something that has served us well.
Nice, nice. The next stakeholder is, of course, community, partnerships, right? I put that in the same bucket.
Right.
So what has been the role of partnerships for you with other organizations and even of community? Could be community of founders, could be community, whoever you consider community, even family can be included in that, right?
Right.
Because that's so critical to allowing you to be able to build SuperHumanRace.
Yep.
How's it played out for you?
Right. So on the on the business side, it's definitely, even the products that we have, it's not just the client and us. When it's in the, business sustainability or ESG space, there is, we have the client, we have a few dozen to several hundred of their suppliers and service providers, and we have consultants and auditors that are on the platform. So everybody needs to be able to do what they are being asked for, given the task at hand on the platform, and to do it well. And we've learned a lot from a lot of the inputs that we get on the social impact side, on the CSR product. We have several hundred NGO partners and non-profits of our client organization. So when any client comes on board for CSR, they will usually bring anywhere between like a handful to several dozen non-profit partners on board the platform. And, one always learns from the challenges of the person that is using the platform to enter data, to approve data. And we're continuously learning from and evolving with the inputs and the experience of these partners. On the experiential citizen engagement side, we have hundreds of thousands of employees of our client organizations, and then there will be location leads and volunteering leads and climate crew leads of these organizations that are on the platform and continuously giving us inputs. And in some cases, some of our best advancements in terms of user experience and the interface have come from people who care about the work they're doing and how what we do might be a boost for the work they're doing. And just being able to listen to them with an open mind and take it to the next level, that's all of that has always kind of helped us, listening to the user, not just the voice of customer, but also the user, all the partners, all the players in the ecosystem. So that's definitely been a big part of us building with the rigor and the adaptability, modularity that we've been able to build with. On the we also have a number of partnerships with a number of folks that have adjacencies in the space, and we've come across interesting use cases from prospect and client organizations and in fact, this is where SusMafia has been a huge kind of resource in terms of just being able to look around and find out somebody who's doing integration of IoT layer on top of legacy systems, or somebody who's doing air quality or particulate matter monitoring and so on and so forth. And I think that we're also dabbling in figuring out about how we partner with consultants, because one of the things that we see in the work we do is that there is a lot of pull for us to get into consulting or advisory for the clients, but we are very clear that we are a product first company. And to that end, finding synergistic partnerships with consultants has been something that we're working on. And I would say on the personal side, yeah, I think to be in early stage to growth stage, it just takes a lot from friends and family, right? People just have to be. I often tell my friends and my family is that I am not unavailable because I want to be unavailable, but it's just something that I've got to do. And, it just kind of is all consuming. And that is not necessarily a commentary on, the relationship, friendship, or the family relationship. And I think that with a lot of us that are like, committed to what we're doing, there is a lot of understanding and there's a lot of unsaid support that we often do not thank our families for enough, and our friends, where they're available when we need and okay if we are not available, right? I think that I mean that's a blessing that one just kind of tends to take for granted but is very real.
You're right, man. I think the role of um, people around you to boost you up
Yep.
is extremely important to just stay committed and be able to play long enough.
Yep.
Um,
And to be tolerant to your faults, right? And to be tolerant to your, idiosyncrasies and your like patterns of availability and unavailability. I think that that's just, yeah.
yeah, for sure. Where does Superhuman Race go from here? Fast forward 5 years, you're looking back 2030, what would you be proud of having achieved? What is your big hope for the future? And
Yeah.
future, I mean, not 5 years from now, not 20 years from now, but 2030 looking back.
So, when we started out, we had a very simple and expansive vision. And I think that if we can get there in 5 years, we'd be really happy. And that vision is that everyone, everywhere that is doing good should be on our platform. And our platform should be the transcript of good for every organization, every individual. We're building connected data ecosystems to that effect so that, because what we see a lot in this space is that people, whether organizations or individuals, there's a lot of this happening in silos, whether it is the measurement of good or the reporting or the disclosures. And I think everybody does one more instance of a reporting or a disclosure requirement because somebody asks for it. And I think that that comes with its own attendant series of challenges with regards to attribution and double counting and, what can be apportioned where and so on. And one of the things that we are looking to do is to create connected data ecosystems as digital public goods across sectors for supply chains and the eventual vision honestly is that one of the problems that I often say is that the data or the information is not decision grade, right? I mean, so I want to do good, I want to buy a new car, but do I know which car I should buy for my use that like gives me the best kgCO2e in terms of embodied carbon and in terms of operational carbon? There's no way I know that right now, right? But if emissions matter to me and it's maybe one of the most important factors along with price and comfort and that kind of a thing, we should be able to have that kind of decision grade, investment grade data at the point of decision, at the point of purchase. And I think that that is another thing that we are solving for is that, product level decision grade data, donation level decision grade data. I think, just being able to kind of reliably say that all other things being equal for this aspect of impact that matters to me, given what I'm seeing here with the data, I'm going to go for this over that. And, being able to facilitate that is the dream.
That's beautiful. But today you're doing it on your platform. How would you take it into the decision-making touch points? I think that bridge is not built yet, right? Today it's all happening within your platform.
That bridge is not built yet, and that is where some of the things that we are thinking about now is that it needs to be a series of sectoral digital public goods, right, that are like emissions inventories or product carbon footprint platforms where anybody that is looking to make the right choice for the aspect of impact that they care about, they should have access to that. Anybody that's looking to disclose anything good that they're doing for that aspect of impact, they should have the ability to disclose their data on that platform and so on. So I think that is kind of where we need to get to in terms of, having this information accessible and available to all. So I think that in today's day and age that does not exist, but with a connected data ecosystem, I mean, we need an internet of impact, right? I mean, I think that's kind of what we need to get to, is that the ability to just be able to filter for all the aspects of impact that matter to you, and then based on all the other aspects that are factors in your decision making, to be able to take that informed decision with confidence.
And I think the second order effects would be insanely big. Right? Just empowering different stakeholders with impact data, with the data,
Right.
and then seeing what happens
Yep.
based off of that. Consumption behavior will change.
Right.
Decisions overall, even enterprise level, will change.
Yep.
And you're right, like today that doesn't really exist. A pan connected system showing impact data. Right? And I think we are making progress there. It's like very many companies doing parts of the puzzle.
Right.
Who brings it all together and connects it?
Right.
And puts it at the touch point of consumers or enterprises within their existing systems, right?
Right.
I think that distribution layer is key.
Yep.
Very, very, very key.
Absolutely. I often say that, we've got to vote with our wallets, right? I mean, it's got to be every decision that we are making. We need to, if this matters to us, then we need to be making it with this lens. But, cut to reality, there is no information available to us to vote with our wallets at the current moment. And so we need to fix that, right? And that's kind of, when we have the customer base at large looking to vote with their wallets, and they have the information available to them to do that, that's when things will really start to, we'll start seeing the ripple effects.
Well, actually start knowing and then voting with their wallets.
Yeah.
That's the main takeaway even for us.
Yeah.
Because if people want it enough, societal change will happen, right? Because those people will take it into enterprises they work at.
Right.
They'll take it into policy positions they may be at. They'll take it into their own households and diffuse it into other family members.
Right.
Right.
Kids will start asking their parents, why aren't we buying this instead of that, right? I mean, that's one of the most powerful vectors that I believe will drive some of this, is just make the young ones our champions. I think that's a very powerful vector for impact.
Yeah, that's why this is a movement, right? Like it's diffusion, it's change of mindset.
Yep.
And that mindset will take some time to trickle,
right?
But it can become a default way of thinking.
Absolutely.
And that's the most powerful, right? Like, it's literally how ideologies get built over decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aalok, this has been a really, really fun, fascinating episode to record, because I think you have taken on a very broad challenge, measuring good. I think it takes courage to like go out and state such a subjective goal, but still like put such a crystal clear system of how do you measure it. You've turned something subjective into an objective measurement. And I find that really cool and courageous. And I really hope that this internet of impact does get built. And everybody gets empowered with like data at least, right?
Yep.
That first touch point, first knowledge layer, because second order effects of that will be immense.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you for all that you do, and really like thank you, grateful again for having this conversation with you.
All right, great. Thanks, Ani, again for having me on this, and thank you.